Welcome to Cheers and Chow, where we explore how people cook, eat, and gather. This podcast is all about the stories, experiences, and connections that happen around food, whether it's in the kitchen, at the table, or beyond. Today, I am joined by someone I had the pleasure of meeting less than a year ago at a facilitator training in Palo Alto, California. By day, Emily is a coach and facilitator, guiding others through transformation and learning. But in her off hours, her cooking experience is all about being place-based, rooted in the flavors, memories, and connections tied to where she is. I can't wait to dive into her approach to food, cooking, and gathering. Emily, welcome to Cheers and Chow. Let's get into it. To kick us off, maybe share with us what you mean by your cooking experience is place-based.
Thanks for that question. And thanks for having me, Coco. It's great to see you again and in this totally different format that I think is essential to connection with people, which is sharing food, sharing recipes, sharing ideas over food. And so this is like a metaphorical sharing ideas over food, right? Because the food is theoretical in our minds right now in this moment. Place-based food for me means a couple of things. It's like bi-directional. So the first direction is I'm a recovering CSA farmer. So that stands for community supported agriculture. I used to do diversified small scale farming and sell at farmers markets and sell pre-picked boxes to customers who signed up in advance. I live on the North Oregon coast, and that's where I started farming. And when I say food is place-based, for me, a lot of it comes from what is a really extensive garden. Someone was just razzing me today about how I don't have a garden. I actually still have a farm. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is small scale, right, for me, but it's large scale for most gardeners. Most of the food comes from this place where I live. We're able to get milk locally from a local dairy. I live in North Tillamook County, and there are more cows than people in this county. That's the tagline if you've ever heard of Tillamook cheese or Tillamook ice cream. And there are also a lot of agricultural professionals in the area who are not tied into like national dairy and cheese through the Tillamook cooperatives, including really close friends of ours who do market farms and CSA farms, who are farmers and raise cows, pigs, turkeys for the Thanksgiving season, ducks, and sell fresh eggs. And so place-based is how much of it can I get here? And that's not to say that everything I eat comes from Tillamook County. It doesn't. For example, I love coffee, and that sure doesn't grow here. I also love ginger, for example, which can grow here in a greenhouse, but I don't currently have a greenhouse on my property. I do know folks down the road, friends of ours, who grow it in their greenhouse. So, I don't eat everything here, but place-based means how much of it can come from here, how much of it can I cultivate. But the other thing that I mean by place-based is I really like to be inspired by particular cultures. For example, during the pandemic, when everyone was bored about being inside, my spouse and I, who lived in an 800 square foot house with a huge garden, every Friday we would do a meal from some culture, like Greek Friday. We did an Italian Friday, French bistro Friday. So we would choose a place and then try to recreate a dish that was place-based. And what's really fantastic about the weather out here is I'm from the Midwest originally. Sweet corn is a really big thing in Indiana, where I was born and raised. One of my brother-in-laws is a fifth generation farmer of corn, wheat, and soy, right? Everybody has sweet corn. Sweet corn does not grow on the coast. It takes too long. It gets too cold at night. Same with tomatoes. Tomatoes in Indiana are like ripe and luscious and the epitome of summer. And they don't really grow without a lot of heat out here because, again, it's too cold at night. I like to be inspired by the cuisines of other places, but to see how much of it can I get from here. But in general, we can grow just so much food in our front yard that it's really exciting. I go all year without buying garlic or potatoes or onions or squash. I process and freeze pureed squash as I get into the winter season because it looks nice on a shelf. I have all these pumpkins and squash decorating my house, and I cook them and freeze them, cook them and freeze them. So that's what I mean by place-based, both that it's of here, but it's also what can I be inspired of in terms of places I've traveled or places I want to travel, or going into this city. Going into Portland is our closest metropolitan area, and it's known to have a lot of great restaurants, like trying restaurants there, recreating favorite dishes from restaurants there. So that's what place-based means to me.
Wow, that is super intentional. I have never had a garden, but always inspired by those that do. And I think one thing that you mentioned is like you have a garden, and it sounds like your neighbors too have gardens.
Yeah.
So is it safe to say it's like a garden community?
I think my community is a garden community. I don't think everybody across the board has a garden, but I would say the majority of people that I have like within my close-knit community, definitely a garden community.
And what does that look like from a bonding aspect? I can imagine some of you might have more experience than the others, but does it create this knowledge sharing to learn from each other? Do you ever swap the things that you're growing?
It happens on a couple levels. There's a Grange Hall just like a mile and a half down the road from my house, and it's still very active. I don't know everything about them, so what I know of them is that they came about in the 1800s. They were community gathering spaces. I'd never heard of them in the Midwest, but they're pretty common out here in Oregon and in Washington state that I know of. And the active grain hall still offers like a seed swap, for example. So people can save seeds, swap seeds, grow different things, like specify growing things that they know work out here because we have a lot of little microclimates since we're very close to the Pacific Ocean. So there's community in that. But in my immediate community, you're absolutely spot on. There's a lot of knowledge sharing and a lot of gathering in support of food, but also just in support of community. So we're in a rural community. There are limited number of restaurants and gathering spaces. There's not much open out here after 8:30 or 9 o'clock, which living in LA is like quite a different experience. And in our close-knit community have this thing that's called work party. We didn't invent this. We actually borrowed it from neighbors of ours in South County on the south side of Tillamook County. And we met these folks through a food nonprofit, right? But it's called Work Party, and there's 6 families, and once a month, we show up at one family's house, and from 9 to 10, we have a social hour, and from 10 to 12:30 or 1, we work, and then there's a big break for a meal for an hour and a half, and then we work until 4, but we have to stop at 4 because it's not a work day. So we can't go till 5. And so it's a community gathering space that we're gathering to improve people's properties. We all have kind of large pieces of property. These aren't like little city plots or condos. So we all have more projects than we know what to do with, but so much more gets done with friends. And so in our work party on the north end of Tillamook County, this is a big debate, which is better, which system is better. The system is that the host feeds everyone all of the food. So to prepare for work party at your house, you're not only organizing all the projects that people are doing, but you spend a couple days cooking and prepping to have 15 to 20 people over for breakfast. And for lunch, my spouse and I often tend to have an after party where we're just like, if people want to stay, if the weather happens to be nice, we'll pull out some cider or wine, which we happen to make here as well, and have an evening where we eat leftovers and hang out, not working on the porch or under the apple tree out in our yard. And so it's a great space to share food, but also to share time and also to share energy and ideas and talk through your life. Some of us who aren't really big church goers, we refer to it as our work party church, right? You go, you connect with people, you connect with this communal spirit, and you have time to share all the things that matter or just be with other people and appreciate that. Oh, I forgot to say one thing, which was South County doesn't do it that way. I have a potluck every single time. I forgot to say that. So that's important to know. South County, they're like potlucks are the best. Sometimes you show up and all there are to eat are desserts, right? Because it's just a free for all potluck. But that's not how we do it in North County. North County, like host feeds, and it's kind of a cuisine like show off like contest or something. So
I hope one of these weekends or months, whenever I can join, because that sounds like a lot of fun. And just like you said, the energy there sounds good. It's a great way to connect with the people in the community. Maybe share with us, like, how does having a garden actually influence the way you cook? I know earlier you had mentioned you don't have to go out for garlic, potatoes, everything you grow yourself.
yeah, so we bought this property and it was like a falling down cabin in the woods that had no electricity or running water. We were like 2 years back from Peace Corps where we actually lived with a 60-watt bulb as our only like electricity and no running water in the cabin that we lived in the highlands of Guatemala. So that's a different story, but it felt like manageable. Like we could do this, we can fix it up. And how does this affect like how we grow or like how we cook? Like we started growing food because we have the space and we didn't have a lot of money. And I came from a farming family. Like my dad is the oldest of 16 kids, and my grandfather, his gardening plot just got smaller and smaller as he got older. But like he was growing tomatoes through his last summer, even if it was
Wow.
hard for him. There's just this practicality to it, as well as this beauty to being able to cultivate the whole plant yourself. And so It does make me eat more seasonally. Like, I have trouble buying things like radishes. Like, I've had to recently give myself permission to do things like buy cucumbers out of season sometimes just because I want them. And it also makes us freeze a lot. We freeze and put up a lot of food. We did more canning probably in the first few years when we were farming. And I think it was like we wanted to know how, we wanted to learn how. But as my spouse and I both have jobs that are not the farm full time, we just do more freezing because it's more time efficient. It's also more nutrient dense than canning. Canning like kills off some of the nutrients because of the long cook times. But I think it really informs how I eat, what I eat, when I eat it. We bought this place that had this beautiful tree out front. Like, I think the nicest thing might have been the tree, except that it was like getting shaded out by all these evergreens. And so over time, as we like refurbished the house, we also cleared the property. My spouse started like pruning the tree. And it's this old English variety Bramley apple. And I kid you not, most of the apples that come off of it are this big. It takes like 4 of them to make a whole pie, sometimes just
What?
3. Yeah, and it's a really tart apple. It's not very enjoyable to just take it off the tree and eat it. It's like really pulling the saliva out, like making you pucker, kind of tart, uh,
Wow.
tart apple. So tart apples are the best for cider because you don't want like a really high sugar content apple in
Mm,
cider because it gives all these flavors and gases that you don't want. It like burns too quickly through the sugar, right? So you want a
mhm.
drier, less sugary apple, just like for baking. Baking emphasizes sugar. So if you start with something that's really sweet, you're going to get something that's cloying. Whereas if you start with something tart, and process really caramelizes and emphasizes the sugar. So you get like this really nice level of sweet. So it's this particular apple tree is the best for cider and the best for apple pies and apple crisps and a kind of baked apple dish. We eat a lot of apple pie in the fall. I try to make 3 or 4 apple pies per fall. We're a house of 2 people, so we like make these pies, take these pies to neighbors, invite people over. It's not really practical. Like I said, my dad's the oldest of 16 kids. Like my grandparents had a lot of people to feed. I didn't go that route, but I did make a really big garden. And we also live in Oregon, so we live right next to prime Chardonnay and Pinot Noir growing plots, like just on the other side of the mountain pass. And so there's a particular vineyard just between us and Portland where we go for you pick days and pick Chardonnay grapes and Pinot Noir grapes. So we make Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and cider just for fun. My spouse also happens to keep bees. So we have a lot of honey on the property. So we've sometimes played with like making some mead, which is pretty terrible early on. And you have to let it sit for years and years and years for it to be anything interesting or nice. Or we do because we're not very well informed. I don't want to give a bad rap to all mead. Some people know what they're doing. But like
Yeah.
a lot of times our Chardonnay is like a little bit sparkly or fizzy. Like that's not normal. We don't know what we're doing, but we kind of like it. So we just like let it go, right? Like Chinese not normally sparkly. So how we garden does impact like what we choose to eat or what we don't choose to eat. But even so, I'm like a seasonal drinker because I don't want to drink Chardonnay in the middle of the winter. As soon as it
Yeah.
gets sunny, I'll get it chilled and like have it on the porch in the sunshine at the end of the day because our porch is really sunny. Or the Pinot Noir is like for wintertime and for late evenings when it's colder. So I'm more of a seasonal eater, I think, than most people in the US at this point, just because of things and where we grow things.
I am totally not a seasonal eater. And I'm
Mhm.
actually trying to be better about when to know certain things are in season. This was some time ago, but I remember going to the farmers market down here and they had this, they're called Cara Cara oranges. I don't know if they even have those in Texas, but I've never had one before. And I just remember having it and I was like, wow, this is truly the best orange. And I normally don't have oranges like that. The next weekend I went, they didn't have them anymore. And she's like, oh, yeah, like they're out of season. And I'm like, well, great. I wish I would have known because I would have made that part of something that I had. So, because you're kind of cooking and making things in this fashion, how does that also play into the way you cook? Like, is it more off of intuition?
It's kind of a combination of both. I'll often have an idea about, okay, these are the ingredients that I want to use. Like, for example, we have a lot of charred corn. It's not sweet corn, right? But there is this like really short season variety that we've been trying to like grow and also harvest before the raccoons eat it for us in the middle of the night. It's like this constant battle. But we got a lot this past year and I love to char it and then freeze the kernels charred. And so for a quick dinner, the other night making a burrito bowl that has black beans and sweet potatoes in it. The sweet potatoes didn't come from our property. We do grow some dried beans, but they're dry and they're not always as convenient as a can of beans, right? But throwing in some charred corn for that little extra texture and flavor in the burrito bowl. Every time we make pasta, we grew so much broccoli this year. Just it was broccoli nonstop, and it was heading broccoli that, like, when you harvested the main head, it would shoot up all these sprouts, and so you could go out for months, month and a half after the main head was harvested and continue to harvest broccoli. So we had a lot that we blanched and froze. So you just like grab handfuls of vegetables from the freezers, like English peas. We have those blanched and frozen, and charred corn and broccoli. So a lot of our vegetables are not as fresh in the wintertime as in the spring and summer, but also we supplement because I love cauliflower, and you can only grow it in the smallest window, but I just think it's so delicious. It's such a I didn't have any appreciation for cauliflower until I started farming it, and I'm like, "Oh, vegetable's so great." Just the crunch of it. So, yeah, a lot more of our veggies in the winter come from the freezer, but they were also grown right here, and I picked them, and I blanched them, and I froze them, so it's still different than, like, the Costco size bag of frozen English peas, which I also buy.
What would you say makes a meal special for you?
There's a couple elements to special meals. One is you always have to light some candles, no matter the season. Um, I yes, yes, and we like have a lot of extra wax, so we actually make beeswax candles. We have some like candles, and you want to pick a wine that goes well with the food that emphasizes both the flavor of the food and the wine. I'm just like kind of the beginning of my wine tasting journey and like knowing how to pair. But I think what makes it special is intentionality to have an idea and to create something with purpose and sit down with at least one other person I love. Because honestly, when I'm by myself, sometimes I'll make some excellent stir fry or something and I will sit down in front of Netflix and like, sip wine and eat the thing. And that doesn't feel like a special meal to me. I might feel like I'm taking good care of myself on one hand, but I do have some judgments about myself sitting down and being like unconscious in front of a show. But being connected to someone, creating an ambiance with it, that makes it special. Like, we have flowers a lot of the year, so, like, picking some fresh flowers, having candles, like, having a nice drink to go with it. I don't know, talking to you right now, I'm just like, "Man, my life is so dreamy." Like, I feel really so much gratitude for living here and for getting to live this way. But quite
Yeah.
honestly, like, at the end of a stressful day, the most relaxing thing for me to do is, like, chop some vegetables. Everything starts with chopping in our kitchen in terms of cooking. Almost every single meal starts with, like, "Oh, why don't we cut up some onions and garlic?" And then we'll go from there. Like, alliums are universal.
I love how you're talking about the atmosphere that you create around the meal. It's funny because you didn't mention anything particular about the meal itself, but it's just like
Mhm.
the atmosphere and the intentionality that plays into that. Some nights I'm better than most, but I totally feel good when I have candles and the light is actually dim enough where I can still see what I'm doing. I've got maybe some soft music going on in the background, a
Mhm.
nice glass of wine, and I'm just like in my zone. It's a very special moment. And also, to your point, when you do eat and you're watching something, it really takes away from the meal itself, right? Because now your
Oh,
attention
yeah.
is like completely focused into whatever show. And don't get me wrong, like I am always eating and watching something, but at the same time, if I know I'm going out of my way to make something really special or new, I just want to be present with the meal so I can taste everything and see how I did and appreciate it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up because it's definitely true.
Yeah, I think intentionality really makes the moment. And it doesn't matter if like we've grilled a steak that our friend raised the beef of, or like if we have made homemade pasta noodles because we took a trip to Italy in 2019 and did a class and we're kind of obsessed. We have a little bit of extra time to make the noodles from scratch and they're just like so much more delightful in terms of texture and flavor, and there's a vibrancy that you don't get out of, like, bag dried pasta, and I don't know any other way to communicate that but to say there's a vibrancy to fresh pasta. I can do any number of things, or we can have candles and wine, and I can, like, make a salad. The food is, like, not exactly the main show, but it is, like, sort of the centerpiece. It's like the seed of the idea is, like, the food, but then the rest of the ambiance as well.
Yeah. Ooh, you actually just said something that's going to lead us into the next question, which is
Okay.
texture.
Yeah.
So, for you, are there any like flavors, textures, or ingredients that always find their way onto your plate. I know vegetables seem to be the star of the show here, but anything else?
Yeah, my spouse used to tease me. He would ask, like, what are we having for dinner? Warm vegetables, warm vegetables. Because for a long time, I tended to go much more vegetarian and I really tried to be more conscientious about bringing protein back in. And I think that my body in particular just really craves, like, I need animal protein. And I know that's not everybody's jam or decision, but it's definitely mine. And I get to make the decision really conscientiously with all these people raising animals around me and getting to buy meat directly from the source here. In terms of texture, I think it's really important to have a variety of textures, right? It's like you have your steak, which is this particular chewiness, and you have roasted potatoes that are crunchy or mashed potatoes that are super smooth with it. Every time I make a salad, I roast some kind of nuts, whether they're like pepitas or sunflower seeds or slivered almonds to put on top because I like the vegetable crunch, but then I also like the meatier crunch of the nuts or the seeds in it. And the same goes with making homemade pasta. Oftentimes, if I don't have a meat component in the pasta to add a component to the chewy texture of it, I'll do some sort of seed on top of it, or like pine nuts, for example, are delicious
Mhm.
on most things. My spouse is allergic to olives, but I love the tangy, like less chewy texture of an olive that you can kind of note that against the pasta if it's in there. But I can't feed that to him because it will make him very ill. But I love them. So just trying to think of the diversity in textures is how I build it. One time as a gift, he came back from this like fancy, he had a job near this really wonderful supermarket we like in Portland called Barber World Foods. And it's a lot of Middle Eastern food products. And he just brought me like 6 kinds of olives. So it was an act of love because he obviously is not going to touch them.
Hey, that's like love right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I do love olives like a lot.
It sounds to me like you have quite a bit of experience with the texture aspect, right? Your thought process behind, oh, like if it's really chewy, then I need something that has a harder bite or more crunch to balance it out. What about any particular flavors that you like?
That's a great question. It's challenging to choose. Like, I'm a big fan of the herb de Provence kind of mix, which is a lot of rosemary and thyme with a little bit of oregano, lavender, and like a little bit of fennel in there sometimes. I think that's broadly applicable to like roasted potatoes or any sort of pumpkin soup that I love making like a pretty basic French pumpkin soup, which is like pumpkin puree, herbs de Provence. You can put like a potato and an apple in there, which I love, like a pomme de terre and a pomme. It's like the earth's apple and then an apple from the tree, right? But I also love like smoked paprika. I studied in Barcelona my junior year of college, and like smoked paprika was just like so ubiquitous in their cuisine. And like you have octopus, it's just boiled with a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of smoked paprika and a pinch of salt on it. It's like the smoked paprika flavor is so delicious. But my spouse kind of gets in these like ruts and he'll be like, let's put smoked paprika on the pizza. And I'm like, no, no, chili flakes only or Mama Little's peppers, but like smoked paprika, like he did it one time. I was like, "Oh, this is so disappointing." So I think I'm broadly open to a variety of flavors and I really enjoy a variety of flavors. I just really also love Asian cuisine and Thai cuisine where you've got like the onion and the garlic, but you add in ginger and it like brightens
Mm.
it up in this like completely different, like lighter way. I don't have one that I tend toward, but I think it's like texture. It's like, how do you create this palette, this whole palette of a flavor experience? There was this restaurant here on the coast and it closed just before the pandemic. It was called the Rising Star, and the chef there, when I would eat a plate of food, it was like a food experience, a palette of flavors. And I like to think of it that way sometimes.
I really appreciate the smoked paprika story. It's different than regular paprika. I mean, it's like you just get smoked paprika if you can. One thing that has helped me, because I feel like it's also exploratory, right? I grew up traditional American cuisine. So it's your typical salt, pepper, and then like your paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, that kind of thing. And so I had to really step out of that so I could start to see and explore like what do other flavor profiles look like or how do other spices like work together. And you talked about one of my favorite ones, which is just like in the Asian cuisine, right? Like the onion, garlic, ginger. It's very good. And I have this book, it's called The Science of Spice. And it's helping me to learn more about where spices actually originate from and spice pairing, what kind of spices go really well together and how will that transform your dish. I'm curious because you're talking deep about flavors, you're talking deep about textures. Like, from an education perspective, where are you learning all of this from?
I shared with you my dad's family. I'm one of 8 kids, so it's a slightly smaller family, but not that much smaller. So my mom
Wow.
was a very utilitarian cooker, like Sam's Club sized jars of powdered spices and then powdered garlic, powdered onions. So your story was really familiar to me in that sense. I don't think that I ever like had a raw clove of garlic that I like peeled and chopped until I was in college. And one of the things that like my mom worked to introduce us to like a variety of foods and different cultures and cuisines and their foods, but also couldn't deviate that far because ultimately she just wanted people to eat and complain as little as possible. Like, get the fuel you need for your sports and your athletics and your studies and don't complain, you know. So yeah, like meat and a couple of veggies on the table and always bread and butter. And like that was kind of the standard in our house. But when I was a junior in college, I studied in Barcelona and my host mom there was just this phenomenal cook. And this might sound strange, but like I had never eaten a pear that wasn't in a can in syrup until I was in Barcelona. And I was a little intimidated by it. Like I was a little scared or nervous about it. One day she was like, "Well, let's have this outing where you just come along with me to get food for dinner." And it's like you go to the fish market and she inspects the eyes to see like how fresh is this fish and like gets the fish. And we go to the grocery store and pick up the veggies she's gonna do on the side. Then we stop at the bakery where they also have a cooler of beer. She would regularly give me the, like, euro 50 or €3 total, I think, to, like, go get a fresh baguette and also a can of Stella Artois because she would drink it while cooking, which I love. So, this woman, Amelia Sasot was my host mom. She passed away several years ago, but this woman definitely inspired in me this, like, deep love of cooking and exploration of cooking, and in fact, as a gift, when I left Spain, I can't remember the name of the main newspaper in Spain now, it's, like, blanking for me, but they had this promotional in the year that I lived there where they released these cookbooks from different countries in Spanish, and she gave, like, a set of 7 to me, like, 7 of the different countries as a present when I left, which is interesting. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't are those on the shelf downstairs?" Like, I can't locate in my mind where they are in my house right now, but I know I wouldn't have gotten rid of them. So there was that, and then I studied in Barcelona. All of my friends in college were interested in figuring out how to provide for ourselves, and we would, like, experiment and cook on our, like, student budget, so nothing very fancy, and I had felt very sophisticated because my senior year of college, I had, like, a case of 2 Buck Chuck Charles Schwab wine from Trader Joe's, like, under my bed that I would pull out for a dinner party, trying to be fancy, whatever. Like, practice makes you, like, perfect, right? It, like, helps you live the life you wanna live, so now I've got, like, crap ton of wine. And from there, I was in Peace Corps in Guatemala and learning, like, the cuisine of Guatemala, but also Guatemala is, like, the breadbasket of Central America, and a lot of produce in the United States comes from Mexico and Guatemala year round for production, and just having access to these fresh markets, there was this Peace Corps cookbook that you could get that was, like, all these recipes volunteers had made up, right? So you have a lot of time to do things there. Between Barcelona and Peace Corps, I had worked at a bakery and natural food store, so I had learned about, like, baking breads and, like, trying things there.
Yeah.
So it's just, like, over time picking up different skills and practicing them where I had time, and then deciding after Peace Corps that we wanted to come back and start a farm. So food became, like, the center of our lives, and I've let it inspire me just wherever I go. I love it. Like, going to Portland feels like with the spirit of travel, because I'm like, "How do I eat my way
Mm.
through the city?" Right? Like, how do I find more things to enjoy or to try out?
I love that. It
Yeah.
also sounds like you're very open, curious, and I love that you kind of go where the food goes. Is there a particular food that brings you instant joy?
So, yeah, I wrote a poem about it. I do some creative writing, and I was in this group where we were given a prompt and we're actually asked to write about a recipe or something that made us feel the feels, whatever those feels were, and explore that, right? And I was just like, forget recipes. And so the perfectly ripe peach is to me like perfection. And it's also just the epitome of summer, which is such a fleeting part of the year, especially where I live on the Oregon coast. We have 9 months. There's like a lot of rain and cloudy, and then you get this intense and short summer. And the peaches don't grow here, but like Guatemala was the breadbasket of Central America. I feel like Oregon can produce just about any type of food. So about 3 hours from where I live in the gorge, the Columbia River Gorge area. It's like the foothills of Mount Hood. There's this area called the Fruit Loop where they grow peaches, apricots, plums, like apples and pears, just everywhere. And it's also like a wine grape region as well. It's in the Fruit Loop area. So like fresh peaches at the market here and peaches in general, I just think are delightful. And then what other food would bring me just immense joy? I don't think there's anything better than the morning where you get to have like a fresh slice of bread with butter and like a hot cup of coffee with cream. Like if my
Mm.
house smells like coffee, fresh brewed coffee and fresh baked bread, I love it. Which is the other benefit of food. Like when you make food, I think the home is a more welcoming space to have these like things lingering in the atmosphere.
Since we're on the topic of peaches, maybe share with us how peaches influence the way you share this particular food with others.
I think pie is universally loved and adored. And I used to say, we're not this stuck up anymore, but I used to say we're pie people. We don't eat cake, we're pie people. We do now. We've created over the last couple of years, we had this birthday challenge where the non-birthday person has to make a special cake for the birthday person. And like we've discovered some incredible cakes that way. But when we got married, we had 7 kinds of pie. Peach blueberry pie with a little crystallized ginger in it is phenomenal. And also just like creating excuses to get together with people out here is something that we love to do. There was a fundraiser for an organization, a couple organizations locally. The Grange was one of them, and a food nonprofit, Food Roots, that I was on the board of directors for. They had this thing called a pie day, pie auction, pie feast. Then the pandemic happened and the celebration couldn't happen. People couldn't get together and eat pie. And another couple friend of ours who are farmers, they were like, oh, we should just make our own pie day. So we hosted at the
Mm.
end, our house was renovated in 2022 and we moved in August. And so that first March on 3.14, we hosted a pie day feast just for our friends. And so people could bring sweet pies, savory pies. They could bring pies of
Yeah.
any kind. So we made a shepherd's pie, but it's actually, I found out later, we should call it stalker's pie. Like it was actually made with venison, with a deer that was hunted here. And so the Scottish call it stalker's pie for the hunters that go out and get them. And then we also had all these peaches frozen because I eat as many as I possibly can handle when they're ripe, but then I also freeze tons to preserve the season. So we have this beautiful peach pie. It's also helped me push the bounds of sweet and savory because, like a grilled peach, much like grilled pineapple, so good. So
Mm.
good. Just a little bit of that char to like caramelize the sweet, but also to add some smokiness to it. It's just incredible. It maybe sometimes also makes me not want to share food, to be quite honest, because I want to eat them all.
I love it. You're like a true peach fan. That's amazing.
I do love them quite a bit. I also just think their coloration is like so gorgeous. Everyone is unique, right? And it's just so
Funny enough, actually, I don't eat a lot of peaches. And I laughed a bit earlier when you said you grew up eating the pears that were in that syrup and just in the little pack. Similar with the peaches for me, too. Like they were always just bought in those packs, very, very sweet. But I have this one memory of my grandmother. She would make these mini peach cobblers, and I kid you not, I'm not actually a huge fan on peach cobbler, but the fact that she made it so tiny and it was just like the perfect spoonful. The crust was made like from scratch. The peaches were just amazing, warm with that nice little dab of ice cream on top. I mean, it was really good. And I would say like that particular way of having peaches is probably my favorite, and like she has to be the one to make it. But I love to hear that peaches is something that you probably can't live without.
yeah, I mean, I want them all. I want to buy a box of them every time they're available, not like 5. I just want a case, right? Just give me the case discount. Yeah, and I didn't have them that often growing up. They were like a more special item in the Midwest, and
Mhm.
they grow really prolifically not very far from me here on the West Coast. So it does feel special. But I do remember my mom always savoring them in the summer. She'd buy peaches and nectarines, and
Yeah.
they were an epitome of summer thing. But most of mine also came from a can. It's just like when you could get that special thing, and now I'm like, I'm a grown up. I can just buy cases of peaches. I'll just buy cases of them.
When it's peach season, you definitely have to share like a photo of your car or something, like all the peaches like stacked up. I would love to see that.
We have a friend who's in work party and they usually make the trip. They like get everyone's bulk orders. So they literally come back to the coast with like a car full of cases of peaches for everyone. It's a
Amazing.
thing. It's a thing.
I really like your community. I don't have anything like that here, but it definitely makes me curious on what that would look like.
Well, you are welcome to visit anytime. We have a guest room and we love filling it up with people that are fun.
I'm
Yes.
there. Maybe that'll be our next episode. Me, you at your place having work party and also maybe enjoying some peaches because it's in season.
Yeah, and probably some Chardonnay, some
I'm down with
chilled,
that.
bubbly Chardonnay. Yeah.
We talked a lot about traditions and rituals involving food. We talked about like coffee in the morning with fresh baked bread and that kind of aroma filling your home. We talked about the wine and the candles and getting the space set up as you prepare the food. We talked about the community. Are there any other kind of traditions, maybe holiday traditions that you have or rituals that you do?
The one that is most prominent for me is that I grew up in a household where every Christmas we would spend days making cookies, just multiple types of Christmas cookies to take to your neighbors and teachers and friends on like platters of mixed fudge and dipped pretzels and cookies. And I think that was maybe easier. Well, it's never easy to do. So I don't want to diminish the work that my mother was head of because I don't know how she managed that circus, but literal days and like the entire 10-person dining room tables that covered in cookies and decorating. So out of that, like every year, if I can only ever make one cookie, it's this gingerbread farmhouse cookie with lemon icing.
Ooh.
But if I can make two cookies, it's the gingerbread farmhouse cookie with icing and then this nutmeg log that's a rum and nutmeg based nougat with a rum frosting and nutmeg sprinkled on top. And then if I can make three cookies, I'll throw in a peppermint patty, which is an oatmeal cookie with crushed up candy canes in it, and then a frosting with candy cane pieces in it. I have a friend, she used to live across the street, and we're her kids' godparents. And every Christmas for the last several years, we always get together and we make cookies together. It's like a very small group of some neighbors here who make cookies together. So I get to continue that tradition, even though I don't have kiddos of my own. But the Christmas cookies, I wrote a little prose piece about making cookies with my family too. I've got one of those in the catalog, but that's
Oh.
the most special thing for me, the most prominent thing. And in fact, I'm the only one who doesn't live in the Midwest still out of my whole family. My brother, who called me the Christmas Nazi growing up, it's his wife that hosts the whole thing. So I think he was just like jealous of my energy and now he gets to like have it all in his house. I don't know. Every year, like the first weekend of December, as many people who can get together, my parents, my siblings, my nieces and nephews, now their partners. I have a couple great nephews, like anybody who can get together and there's like 4 generations of family get together and they make hundreds and hundreds of cookies and decorate them.
Wow. I think
Yeah.
anyone who's listening and watching this is probably radically inspired by you. And also, they're just like, man, can she come and feed me? Can I be a part of any of her holidays or anything that she's throwing?
The answer is yes, because I think an open door is the best policy.
She's always had her doors open, like literally when we met. We were spending what, maybe 5 days together, and you're like, oh yeah, like if you and Logan want to come through, like just let us know.
Totally, because we've enjoyed so much hospitality from people who we don't know that well, like when you're traveling in the world, or people that we got to know after the fact. Or like, I think magic happens when you're willing to literally break bread with someone. And that doesn't matter. I think it's less and less common to invite people into your home, which is a bit of a shame. But I think part of growing up in this huge family was what's one more was kind of always the mentality. One of my best friends growing up was an only child, and she loved being at our house. She had no sleep at her house. So there's always people, but there's always enough food for everyone. Like the more the merrier. I threw a solstice party this year. It was called the pre-solstice party. I like to have a solstice party when I'm home, but sometimes I'm back in the Midwest with family. And I was just craving like that energy of a big party. And I kid you not, like we got to this point where the volume in the house was so high that my entire nervous system just like settled down in contentment.
Wow.
Like, okay, this is what it's like. Create a space and bring people together and let them talk and let them have fun. And it was like people of all ages, tiny little toddlers and elders in the community and everybody together. And I feel like there's so much magic there.
We feel that too. We're going to wrap up this show with just a rapid fire segment I like to call Off the Menu, a quick round of fun, unexpected food related questions. So no overthinking, just kind of go with your gut and say the first thing that comes to mind. Sound good?
Yeah,
All right.
I'm ready.
Okay. You have 5 minutes to make a meal. What's on the plate?
An egg, avocado, if I've got it, some greens, and a piece of toast if I have bread in the bread box.
Nutritious. Go to comfort meal after a long day.
Mashed potatoes. I love mashed potatoes. I can just make them the center of the meal.
That's actually a really good one. I will say one thing I appreciate about potatoes is their versatility. Like just last night, nothing was going on. It's 11 p.m. and I'm like, you know what? I want some fries right now. So I just go grab a potato, cut them up, and make some fries. A lot you can do with the potato. Would you rather over season or never season at all?
Over.
Ooh. The best meal you've ever had and where?
And that's a hard one. I've had so many good meals in so many places, but I would have to say I did this experiment once about pretending like it was the last day of your life,
Sounds fun.
which is a different story. But one of the things I needed to have was like really good food. And there's a very wonderful Italian restaurant in Portland that we've gone to for just celebration occasions. And it's like all homemade pasta, local meats and fish, like really fresh and like a really well curated wine list. So it was like a pairing and it was summertime. So it was like starting with cold soup, ending with like house made gelato, all the sparkly wines and the dessert wine at the end, and it was just delightful. And to this day, when I go to that restaurant, we could just share a plate or two, and I just feel at ease the moment that I walk in the door. It's the food, it's the ambiance, it's all of it.
Amazing. You'll have to go there this weekend, maybe. Okay, here's a fun one. What's in your fridge right now that you should probably throw away?
One of the last apples from the apple tree in our yard. Like I might be able to shave part of it off and like use some of it in the
Has the season ended for it?
They all get harvested in October, kind of like beginning of October, end of September.
Okay.
And so it's been hanging out there a while. But like also apples have like a really long shelf life if you keep them cold enough long
Yeah.
enough. So I don't know.
Okay, a food that you refuse to eat.
Tripe. I tried it once. It was abhorrent.
What was it?
Tripe. It's like cow intestine. I think my spouse has the best description for this. He's like, it's like bicycle rubber with shag carpet on it. It was like the texture. It's like, I just, nope, didn't like it, didn't enjoy it. I tell you what, I ate like fried ants, flying ants called some popos in Guatemala, and also turuesh, which are like dragonflies. They eat these different insects fried and with lime and salt. I would eat those any day in profusion over tripe.
Wow. Okay, you're a real food adventure at this point. I feel like the more we go into this, like the more you keep surprising me. One food you'd eat for the rest of your life.
Blueberries.
Okay.
It could be peaches, but we have 24 blueberry bushes in our yard, and just I never tire of blueberries either. So I don't want to give them the short stick here. Also carrots. I mean, I would eat and potatoes. I mean, I don't know.
Okay, if you had to pick one,
Yeah.
peaches, blueberries, potatoes, carrots.
Potatoes would probably save my life over and over again. My like Irish heritage is like calling. So I'd have to probably claim the potato, but
There we go.
that's also because I'm more of a savory than sweet person. So
Okay, there we go. If your food combo you secretly love.
and I secretly love. It's hard to see my own habits as weird.
Maybe not weird, but something that you just like, a combo that you really appreciate. We could do it like that too.
Combo that I really appreciate. This is a little bit strange. I love popcorn and hot cocoa, or popcorn and hot tea together.
Really?
I have my granddad's stovetop like popcorn maker. Like I make some popcorn and then have like hot tea or hot cocoa together.
Hey, that sounds enjoyable. If it's good, it's good.
Salty and sweet. You get the salty in the popcorn, the sweet in the cocoa.
You do that particularly around the holidays or like all year round?
I'd say more in the fall and winter, like in the darker season, but it's not necessarily a holiday thing because usually the holidays there's like so much other sugar. So it's kind of like shoulder season.
Yeah.
I feel like I could have that for dinner now, like after we get off this podcast recording.
Cooking style was a song, what would it be?
It would be like classical orchestral piece.
I love that.
Like an uplifting one, maybe some Vivaldi or something. I'm just making this up. I don't actually know that much about classic music. I just have like a little bit of exposure, but I definitely think orchestral and like classical. Yeah. I didn't invent any of these things. It's not modern. I'm not like making extractions or like doing fiery processes that are new, or avant-garde with my cooking.
And last but not least, which I think you already answered, sweet or savory?
Super duper savory.
Emily, that was very fun. You've shared a lot with us, and I think you've got one thing to share with the rest of the audience.
Oh, yeah. I'll read you my poem about peaches. It's called All I Want. When the full sun is again high in the sky and spilling heat in every glorious golden ray, and the garden is, after so much work, finally bursting with fruit so that my options are nearly limitless. Peas clump on the vines, beans hanging ready on the bush, potatoes pulled from musty earth, cucumbers in tangled abundance, broccoli and cauliflowers, and cabbages as big as my head, picturesque and just waiting to be plucked up for dinner. And the breeze bow their branches, call for daily attention to harvest, while strawberries lay sunning themselves, and I, with the help of a diligent hunting cat, must beat the chipmunks to savor them. And the fresh garlic scapes and herbs crowd the garden edges to tempt and inspire. I could make almost anything. A slab of sourdough smeared with butter and red radish slices, topped with a pinch of smoked salt, snap peas and olive oil with mint and lemon, spicy mustard greens and shaved carrots with feta crumbles. There's so many options at my fingertips after months of diligent, intentional work and patience. Is a peach, lying heavy in my palm. They don't grow in my garden, but I will seek them out at markets here or follow the winding road over the pass and through the valley into the gorge to the orchard source of this delightful treat, to buy them by the boxes full. All I want is peaches, their silky skin, the perfect chromatic orange, gold, red hues to imitate in watercolor on postcard sized papers to mail to sweet friends with a missive. Darling, you're a peach. The boxes of peaches pack concentrated fragrance, infuse the car with the scent of summer as I drive them carefully back home, where the fresh coastal breeze is too cold to grow them. But to peach in the sun on my porch, gazing out on an overflowing garden, marks the height of the summer season for me. I often of wanting something else, something more, a thing just outside of easy reach. Bite into its soft, juicy flesh, and with the first burst of flavor every time I think the peach is worth it. Forgetting the knives, the chopping, the stove, the boiling and prepping and mixing and rolling of pie crust, the grill fired and ready. The peach undeniably delicious when boiled, to jam with a hint of ginger, baked in pies alongside a handful of blueberries, grilled and served with creamy, salty burrata and basil. I will not refuse it sliced and frozen to pull out in the late fall and winter to mix and bake a quick crumble, but for the moment, why go to so much effort? The perfectly lovely savored ripe, all on its own. The taste and accumulation of energies drawn deep from the soil and dormant cold, collected from sunlight after leaves bud and unfurl, the most beautiful expression of a late spring flower faded, a tiny mimicry of the one glorious thing that runs this whole summer show. Pinched between finger and thumb to suck the juice and still have drops running down my arms as I bask in the heat rays and shade my eyes from the glare off the river just before I'm ready to jump in. Communion and baptism all in one. A sacrament to repeat, revisit during this one small, vibrant window of the year. It's a moment to settle into the richness of here, now, to pause at an apex of simple luxury and savor with all of my senses the culmination of rest, of burrowing deep in winter's blanket and drinking hard the new snowmelt and savoring every single ray of gradually warming sun to touch this flower and fruit. To figs that hefted and climbed ladders, to thank the careful, calloused hand that plucked this glowing orb from its tree, and almost Icarus returned to earth to pack this peach destined for me, is continued incentive to want what is just beyond my reach.
Emily, that is just amazing and beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing with us. I mean, wow, amazing.
Thanks for this conversation. It was so fun to hear and how and what is enjoyable. I'm excited to hear the episodes with your guests. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for today's episode of Cheers and Chow. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe and check out Emily's featured poem on Substack. Until next time, cheers.